Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Tonight and tomorrow morning, San Diego will see the strongest Santa Ana wind event so far this year. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. KPBS SciTech reporter Thomas Fudge has the latest on our local wind advisory.
Yesterday, the winds were blowing hard in the San Diego mountains. They blew in from the ocean, bringing with them clouds and drizzle. Today, the wind has shifted, coming in from the desert, and forecasters say they'll be the strongest Santa Anas we've seen so far. And they've already caused damage in the counties north of us.
There are trees down, there are power poles snapped, there are semis overturned between Riverside and Irvine.
Tardy says San Diego's winds won't be that strong, but tonight we should see wind gusts in the mountain passes reaching up to 65 miles an hour. He says those mountain passes are always very blustery. That's because the mountains block other places where those westbound winds can blow.
And a wind is because the wind is coming from the desert and it's piling up on those mountains, and it's only able to get through the mountain passes like Interstate 8.
So, he says, if you're driving a tall vehicle on Interstate 8 in the coming 12 to 20 hours, be aware of the winds. He says these dry Santa Ana winds thankfully pose a low fire risk due to cooler November temperatures and the rain we got last week. Thomas Fudge, KPBS News.
Well, it's been quite blustery, especially towards the end of the weekend. And while those winds are still howling in a few areas, which is why we do have high wind warnings and wind advisories on the board. Now, how long are these gusty winds going to stick around? Well, hey, these advisories go throughout the day on Tuesday. We'll tell you when those winds start to calm down and where temperatures go as we head into the holiday.
And dangerous storms are rolling through the Gulf Coast, threatening damaging winds, hail, and even tornadoes. One is on track to potentially throw a monkey wrench into a busy holiday travel week. Laura Aguirre explains your rights as a traveler when it comes to delays and cancellations.
Travelers should be checking with their airline directly for the most up-to-date information about their flights.
Solid advice whenever you're flying, but even more important this week. Severe weather across large parts of the U.S. threaten to snarl holiday travel plans. Powerful rainstorms over areas of the central U.S. are rolling toward the Midwest. And thunderstorms over parts of the Gulf and southern regions could bring tornadoes, damaging winds, and large hail throughout Monday night. To navigate the impact on air travelers, the National Weather Service is positioning meteorologists at 22 FAA centers.
They provide down-to-the-minute weather predictions for exact arrival and departure routes in the busiest parts of the U.S. airspace.
The Department of Transportation says it's been working closely with airlines to ease the cost of trip delays on travelers.
Now, almost all of them guarantee hotels and ground transportation, and all of them guarantee covering meals. If your flight gets canceled or significantly delayed for any reason, I want the traveling public to know that you are entitled to a full cash refund if you choose to take that refund rather than a rebooking.
And that's good news, given forecasters predict by Tuesday, rain and snow could be hampering air and highway travel across large parts of the Midwest, New England, and East Coast, from D.C. to Atlanta.
We will be using every tool at our disposal to keep cancellations and delays as low as possible.
I'm Laura Aguirre for KPBS News.
The Transportation Department is advising passengers to visit flightrights.gov for the latest information on what each airline offers during delays or cancellations. If you opt to travel to your Thanksgiving destination by land rather than by air, we have some money-saving tips. We'll have those for you a little bit later on. A vigil is set to get underway in about an hour to mark Transgender Remembrance Day. It's an opportunity to honor the lives lost to anti-trans violence. And KPBS reporter John Carroll is live in Hillcrest with more on a symbolic action taken earlier today. John.
Maya, it's something that humans have done for centuries. That is the lowering of a flag to recognize a life lost or lives lost. And that's just what happened here this morning as the trans pride flag, as you can see, now flies at half staff to remember those lost. About 20 people walked over from the LGBT center to the big flagpole, which usually has the familiar rainbow-colored pride flag flying. The trans flag is made up of light pink, light blue, and white stripes. Bliss Vasquez is the case manager and peer advocate for Project Trans at the center. She was the one who lowered the flag, and afterwards she talked to us about the state of acceptance for trans people these days.
I think it's easier to think that things are better because trans people are more visible, but there's still so much work to be done just for the acceptance of our community and for people just to be able to walk their daily lives and not be killed for it.
Now, Maya, as you were saying, a vigil is set to get underway here at 6. There will be the names of the 45 trans people who've been lost to violence over this past year read aloud. Trans people will share their thoughts and stories about their lives and how they are able to live them these days. All of that with the underlying reality that anti-trans legislation has been passed or is in the process of being passed in several states around the country. And that is something that the folks here will tell you can all too easily lead to violence, sometimes deadly violence, against trans people. We're live in Hillcrest. I'm John Carroll, KPBS News.
Now, John, thanks for that report. Do the people that you spoke with today say San Diego is a good place to live as a trans person?
Well, it's all a matter of perspective, Maya. I did talk to Bliss Vasquez about that, and she said that compared to most other places in the country, yes, San Diego is a good place. As a matter of fact, in her position at the center, she says that she's seen something of an influx of trans people from other states like Florida that have passed anti-trans legislation here to San Diego, but there is still that violence, that underlying tension that trans people, even here, have to live with day to day. Maya?
Very much for that, KPBS reporter John Carroll. A community activist has filed 2 complaints with the California Department of Justice against the San Diego Police Department and Chief David Nislight. KPBS reporter Alexander Nguyen says the complaints allege corruption and abuse of power.
The critical institution has been compromised.
Community activist Tasha Williamson is calling for the immediate resignation of San Diego Police Chief David Nislight and Assistant Chiefs Chris McGrath and Terrence Charlotte. She is accusing them of dishonesty and abuse of power and has filed 2 complaints with the California Department of Justice Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training, also known as POST.
We are calling for an external entity to initiate an investigation into corruption within the San Diego Police Department's Internal Affairs Unit.
The allegations come on the heels of a discrimination complaint filed by Police Captain Alberto Leos last month. He alleges that the department's top brass altered reports concerning traffic collisions involving police officer. One of those collisions allegedly involved Ryan Nislight, the chief's son, who is also an SDPD officer. Leos claims he has faced retaliations since pushing back on altering the crash report, while Nislight's son was promoted despite allegedly being at fault in the crash. At the news conference this morning, Williamson was joined by Yusuf Muller, Executive Director of the North County Equity Justice Coalition.
Leadership is responsible and culpable, and we need to find out the truth of the matter. This ricochets all the way down to the street cop, the cop that is on the beat.
He says that erodes the community's trust in police. In a statement, San Diego Police Officers Association's president, Jared Wilson, says, over the year, Tasha Williamson has made numerous false allegations about SDPD officers and employees. Based on past allegations, her claims are not credible, and the SDPOA will be reviewing this for libel and legal action. Williamson says the police union is part of the problem.
So we do not hold credible the POA because the POA is part of the system that is part of the problem. And they have been protecting this system for as long as they have been in existence.
Nislight announced last week he is retiring next year. Williamson is also calling for a halt of all promotions in January in light of the allegations, and also for an outside entity to conduct the search for a new chief with the community's input. Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
A new report says more than half of those detained by immigration officials in San Diego are there too long. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman says in some cases the holds are weeks longer than they were supposed to be.
The report comes from the Department of Homeland Security's Office of Inspector General, detailing findings from unannounced inspections in May. It found more than half of detainees in the San Diego area detention centers were held longer than 72 hours, which is a national standard for federal agencies.
It's concerning to me because we know that the short-term custody facilities aren't equipped to care for people who are there for a long duration of time, and then also because it represents a violation of the agreements that are in place, and I question whether the national standards are being observed.
The report found some overcrowding and that enhanced expedited removal processing factored into longer detention times. That's a process where migrants are held until an asylum officer or judge determines whether fear claims are credible. Some were held for over 10 days, and at least one was 34 days.
The concern is here that if they're being held for a longer amount of time, that the facilities just aren't equipped to provide for the needs that they might have.
Rios works with other community groups to provide those seeking asylum assistance while they wait between sections of border walls to be processed. He considers this alone to be detention.
There are national standards that need to be observed by Border Patrol officials and by CBP generally. Those include providing shelter for people, providing food, water, attending to medical needs, and when they are held in these open air conditions, those needs are not being met unless community organizations such as ours and community members are here providing those needs.
The report found Customs and Border Protection generally met other standards, like providing food and medical care, except for some worn bedding at one facility. CBP told KPBS that they were working to respond to our questions, but the report did have two recommendations that officials responded to. The first was to come up with new strategies and solutions to manage delays. CBP's official response was they concurred and have already taken steps to do so by increasing staffing, coordination with community groups, and using technology for virtual processing. The other recommendation was to review detainee custody logs each month to monitor progress, something CBP also agreed with. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, Israeli forces descend on another Gaza hospital as the death toll rises and hostage negotiations continue. At 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Rosalind Carter, mental health activist, humanitarian, and former First Lady, passed away Sunday at the age of 96. Here's Ivan Rodriguez with a look at her life and legacy.
Tributes continue pouring in for the late Rosalind Carter.
You know, they're really an incredible family because they brought so much grace to the office.
The former First Lady died Sunday after entering hospice care on Friday.
She was well known for her efforts on mental health and caregiving and women's rights. So I hope that during the holidays, you'll consider saying include the Carter family in your prayers.
Mrs. Carter was actively involved in her husband's presidency and a strong advocate for equal treatment of the mentally ill.
Nobody even talked to each other about their own mental illness at all. And now to see that, that actually people can recover is the greatest thing.
But it was the couple's work after leaving the White House that would leave the longest legacy, redefining and revolutionizing the post-presidency. In 1981, they spearheaded a new challenge, joining with Habitat for Humanity, building houses for the poor. A year later, they established the Carter Center, a foundation devoted to promoting human rights, resolving conflicts, and eradicating diseases.
I'm proud of the work of the Carter Center, which has developed to become one of the most admired and respected institutions, not only nationally but internationally.
I'm Ivan Rodriguez reporting.
Imperial Valley residents are hoping to get their cut of the profit from the future lithium industry. For them, that means well-paid and sustainable jobs. iNewsSource investigative reporter Philip Salata tells us about a new college program that may bring locals one step closer to landing them.
Students at Imperial Valley Community College now have the chance to partake in a unique new program that will prepare them for jobs in the lithium industry. Lithium is one of the key metals needed for batteries that power electric cars and computers. But when word got out that just under the Salton Sea lay enough lithium to supply roughly a third of current global demand, locals didn't just see dollar signs. It wouldn't be the first time the valley would host an alternative energy venture, and none have given back what the community hoped for in terms of jobs. And when it comes to inequities, Imperial County still finds itself with the state's highest unemployment rates. IVC's Dean Efrain Silva is at the helm of making this class a reality.
This lithium industry that's coming, I don't see it as an opportunity. I see it as a responsibility. So we have a responsibility as a college to make sure that as companies begin to hire, we have prepared our residents to be able to take on those jobs.
Last year, Governor Gavin Newsom declared that all new car sales in California will be zero-emission vehicles by 2035. With the potential of supplying a large portion of estimated global lithium needs, Imperial Valley could be in a transformative position. But a lot of groundwork is needed for lithium profits to translate to benefits for the community. And this class is one concrete step forward. I'm iNewsSource reporter Philip Salata for KPBS.
Good news for those who rely on the San Ysidro Port of Entry's pedestrian west facility. Southbound lanes reopened this afternoon. It may also be good news for businesses in the South Bay. According to the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce, San Diego feels the impact every time the border closes, and San Ysidro lost over 200 businesses when the port was closed during the pandemic.
It's even worse than when we start the coronavirus right now. There's no people around because it takes so long to cross the border and to go back to Mexico right now.
Southbound lanes open from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. and northbound lanes opened last week and are operational from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. The San Ysidro Port of Entry says CBP is still working to resume normal operations. Interstate 10 in Los Angeles is open today just in time for the Thanksgiving travel rush. A portion of the freeway closed for around a week after a massive fire on November 11th. Officials previously said the interstate would reopen tomorrow. Investigators say the fire was deliberately set by someone, and they released images of the person of interest. If you're driving to your Thanksgiving holiday destination, get ready for a break at the pump. Gas prices are expected to be at the lowest level since 2020, but as we know, road trip costs can add up quite quickly. Cole Higgins has 5 tips to get better mileage and save money if you're hitting the road.
More than 49 million people are expected to hit the road this Thanksgiving holiday. According to AAA, that's up 1.7% from last year.
The demand for travel just continues to go up year after year, and this Thanksgiving is no exception.
And drivers will be greeted with a welcome sight at the gas pump. Gas prices are tumbling fast across the country. According to GasBuddy.com, national average Thanksgiving gas prices could hit their lowest levels since 2020.
Overall, Americans are going to be greeted with gas prices that on average are about 45 cents lower than what they were last year.
Despite the break at the pump, road trip expenses can add up. So what can you do to minimize costs? Gas Buddy has these 5 tips. First, plan your trip well. The state where you fill up will impact prices, and those costs add up every time you fuel up.
Some states like California, the average is still $4.95. While some states like Texas are almost $2 a gallon lower at about $2.75 a gallon.
Number 2, watch your speed. Slowing down even a few miles per hour on the highway can increase your fuel efficiency. 3, shop around. Don't just pull over at the nearest station, and use apps to help you find the cheapest gas near you.
It always can pay to shop around, especially with prices now declining for 9 straight weeks. Some stations are lowering their prices much quicker than others.
4, take advantage of perks. Consider signing up for loyalty programs to get discounts or use a rebate credit card. And finally, pay in cash. Some stations offer cash discounts. For Consumer Watch, I'm Cole Higgins.
Well, let's start you off with your weather headlines, what you need to know over these next few days. Well, we are still dealing with some early week Santa Ana winds. The winds really started to pick up this past weekend, and we are still dealing with some gusty conditions for the start of the week. Weaker winds, though, as we head into the day on Thursday, though it is going to be cooler and breezy for the actual holiday on Thursday. Tonight, we're dropping down to a low of 49. It's going to be clear and cool, but we are still dealing again with those Santa Ana winds, as those winds did turn northeast northeasterly, bringing gusty conditions across the mountains of SoCal from Santa Barbara through Burbank, Riverside County, down through San Diego County. Northerly winds turning to Santa Ana, locally damaging wind gusts between 40 to 70 miles per hour. But hey, I wouldn't be surprised if we got a wind report still as high as 100 miles per hour. This is going to be through Monday, but these wind advisories go into effect through Tuesday morning. That's because it's still going to be quite windy, especially overnight Monday into early Tuesday. A high wind warning in effect for parts a little bit further north through Riverside County, but down across San Diego County, wind advisory still in effect here from Pine Valley up through, again, parts of the mountainous terrain, but that's where we're going to be seeing our highest winds as we head into the early hours on Tuesday. But they will start to calm down here throughout the day, even as we head into the day on Wednesday. Where do highs go, though, in the midst of this? Well, Oceanside, you're at 81, so pretty warm here for tomorrow. San Diego, 77, Ramona, 77, Borrego Springs, 75, and Mount Laguna, 52. Now, you'll note for the actual day for Thanksgiving, dry and mild here across a lot of the Southwest, so we aren't really talking about too much action to contend with if you are heading out and about for Turkey Day. Let's take you over these next few days along the coast. Well, highs 81 on Tuesday, though we are going to gradually start to cool down as we head into the middle and later half of the week. Partly sunny skies for Thursday for the holiday. More inland, well, you'll see that dip in temperatures as well, dropping from the 80s Tuesday and Wednesday down to the 70s and 60s by Thursday and Friday. For the mountains, well, hey, you're in the 40s by the holiday on Thursday, 42 by Friday, so it is going to be quite chilly, though that sun will stick around. And for the deserts, well, highs remaining relatively steady, though we are going to see a dip as we head into the day on Friday and even into the beginning of the weekend with a high of just 66. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Bree Guy.
Why drive to work when you could just fly? One California company is working to make that happen. Supernal is a new air mobility company that's developing air taxis that they hope will be ready for takeoff in about 5 years. Karina Nova reports.
The future is here in the Bay Area, specifically in Fremont, where these autonomous aircraft are being built. Supernal is an advanced air mobility company, part of Hyundai Motor Group. The vision is to create an air taxi that would allow people to skip the commute on the roads. Ramona Stefanescu is the lead research manager.
Going from a hub like an airport or again a downtown, right, San Francisco, San Jose, to Palo Alto or some city in between, that can be done as a short trip with an air taxi. Not being stuck in traffic, not spending 40 to 50 minutes in traffic. We want to give time to people to spend more time with their families.
Stefanescu and her team are in the process of designing a first-generation aircraft. It would seat 4 people and at first be piloted by a human, going about 120 miles per hour with a 25 to 30 mile battery range.
What we're looking at here is, it does kind of look like a helicopter to me, but what's different?
So you're going to see a lot of movement in the rotors. So you're taking off vertically, you're flying as a plane forward, and then you land back vertically. So it's a mix between a helicopter and a plane.
How hard is it to design and build something this new?
It is challenging, but you know, we cannot forget that we are building on top of existing technologies and an existing manufacturing process for aircraft, for civilian, commercial aircraft and general aviation aircraft.
Part of the process is developing batteries that are lightweight and powerful, building the airframe, rotors, sensors, as well as an ecosystem for these vehicles to take off and land, something they're calling a vertiport.
It's going to be a dedicated structure. We can draw analogies with a helipad right now, right? A very similar construction where we need to land vertically. But yes, it's going to have charging stations. This is an electric aircraft powered by batteries, so it's going to have availability of charging stations for cars, for the aircraft, but also to park our cars or bikes, or, as I said, hopefully we can walk to a vertiport.
The timetable for Supernal employees here and across the company to get the aircraft into service is 2028. That's 5 years from now.
through this process where we have safety as the core, it may take a few years, and we, taking the right steps, we may not be the first or second to market, but there is something that the company is dedicated to, the safety of our aircraft.
In some of this video, we're seeing multiple aircraft flying at the same time.
Yes.
Will that be the future?
Yes, that's definitely the future, and we are working on aircraft integration in the airspace. We are aware that we are not going to be the only one flying.
So fog, rain, will that be an issue?
That's some of the work that my team is looking into, how we are going to operate when we are going to have fog in San Francisco.
In 2038, you imagine your friends, family saying, oh, I'm going to take this to skip my commute in my car.
Yes, and I hope myself to come to work one day with an air taxi. I hope that for sure. We need it here.
Karina Nova with that report. And if you're wondering about how much it'll cost, Supernal says it wants to make the flights affordable, about the price of a 45-minute UberX ride. And here is a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. NPR's Morning Edition is covering the start of the Thanksgiving travel period, and that includes a record number of Americans expected to fly this week. And KPBS Midday Edition is talking about food insecurity in San Diego and the challenging work done by local groups trying to help. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.